right, we have about 5 minutes left for questions. And there is a question in the question and answer session, and I would like to address this to Peter. Okay, the author of the question said, I speak from Brazil. Here we produce soybeans and corn and transport these grains over 2,000 kilometers to then ship them to China. Is it possible to talk about sustainability in this type of chain?
It's a very difficult question, isn't it? I mean, if you think about local versus global, are there better ways of using the land? Are there better ways of, would the beans be used in Brazil? There's no simple answer. I suspect from a life cycle analysis, it's not great. But the trouble with global food economics is you never quite know, you never know where everything is going. I think these sorts of things are rather scary. It's clearly, for example, take my example, it's easier to ship or move alcohol from Denmark to Australia. I think we need to look at these things. I don't have an answer, but it's a very interesting question.
Thank you, Peter. Do any of our other speakers want to take a shot at that question? Nobody wants to.
There's a long silence, isn't there?
Yeah, I guess you gave us the right answer.
Well, Sue, if I could just briefly add to Peter's point, since he did say life cycle assessment, and that's my jam. I guess one of the important things about that type of methodology is it sometimes leads us to surprising findings. And so, you know, some of our global transportation networks are really efficient when it comes to, say, global warming and fuel use. And it could be that if you can farm things with lower intensities in some areas and ship them, there are cases where that actually has a lower global environmental footprint than growing them closer to the point of distribution if it requires more resources because you're fighting against the local climate. Or if you're using controlled environment agriculture, that adds a new twist. So I think that's why it's important for all of these questions that we step back and take that kind of full systems view to actually quantify under what conditions do certain pathways make sense and where those environmental hotspots are that we should try to mitigate.
Absolutely. And I know my colleague Seraphim in Denmark, there are talks that it might be more efficient to ship milk powder to Africa, where livestock farming is very expensive in an environmental sense, and you might do better to import milk, if you like, rather than destroy the landscape with cows. Now that becomes a really interesting life cycle case, which I'd love to see the small print of.
Yes. So, Callie, something that people ask me all the time is, how do we incentivize the environmental part so that people will make decisions that are environmentally sound?
Well, I guess I would make 2 points there. One is that there's a critical challenge here for engineers to actually begin incorporating these economic and social considerations well up in the design process. And this is where what Rich shared was so important about the kinds of education that we put in place to actually train students to do that. There's a lot of possibility for green technologies that actually cost less or save money. The other point that we often make is around the business case for these solutions. So food waste is, again, a great and compelling example. It costs businesses a lot of money to dispose of. It's heavy, wet, smelly, and it takes a lot of energy and resources to collect and haul it. So some of the competitive technologies that we have available or alternate pathways can actually be cost affordable And this is especially true when policy comes into play that actually starts putting in some requirements. And now in about 7 states, we do see landfill bans and food waste recycling targets that are really now encouraging that. And the states that are passing those are then investing in economic development activities to build out infrastructure. So that's where sort of that coupled nature of the business, the technology, and the policy becomes so important.
Yes, yes, like our other speakers were talking about with the public and private collaborations. And it also makes me think of what Joe said, that agriculture is slow magic, because if we're going to educate a generation to work on this problem, it's going to be slow, but I don't know that we have another choice. All right, I think we have gotten to our time.
That was an excellent presentations and discussion from this panel as well. Thank all of you very much, and I hope that we can capture all of the points. I know I can't do it by the end of today, but we certainly want to do that.